So Buddha's teachings, which he doesn't write down, but are written down by his followers, develop into a credo known as the Four Noble Truths. And I'm not going to write them down here because this is one of the assigned readings. So if you're struggling to take them down, one, it would have popped up in the textbook already, but two, they're going to be even more explicit in your readings for the next class. The first of the truths is a tough one. Life, from birth to death, is full of suffering. The second one builds on that. Suffering comes from desire. That we want things is why we suffer. 3, how do we get rid of suffering? How do we rise above it? Get rid of desire. Number 4, only by adhering to what he develops as the Eightfold Path can people get rid of desires, get rid of the idea that they have a separate identity from everything else in the universe, and get themselves to a state of contentment or nirvana. Right? So real quickly, the Four Noble Truths: life has suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. Get rid of desire, get rid of suffering. How do you get rid of desire? Through the Eightfold Path. So elements of the Eightfold Path include wisdom, which is basically involved with having the right views on the world and the right intentions. It's focused on ethical behavior, conducting yourself well, speaking well, living a good life, on mental discipline, rigid effort, thought, meditation. And so wisdom, ethical behavior, mental discipline, these are really simple, clear principles that make them appealing to lots of folks. And this offers also a profound change into thinking about humanity and correcting behavior. Like in Jainism, there's no space for supernatural beings to dictate what goes on in human life. It's a logical explanation of suffering, and a lot of people are suffering at this point. Guidelines for getting rid of desires. These things appeal to lots of folks because the idea is that if you live well enough, you can be reborn in a better way. If you waste merits, if you indulge on desires, can send you down that totem pole. Buddha's appeal becomes even more understandable if we think about it in the context of Southeast Asia during this time period. So, for example, if life is suffering and death leads to rebirth, then this cycle brings endless suffering. Attaining nirvana provides a way out of that horrible kind of repetition of this vicious cycle. Buddha preaches in the common language, a vernacular version of Sanskrit. Everybody can understand him, which is not the case for how the Brahmins communicate with each other in kind of a secret language. His followers form a community of monks. They call themselves, or they are called, the Sangha, the gathering. And what they and the Buddha do is they kind of wander from town to town, city to city. They find large audiences. They find charity that they need to sustain themselves. And they get some really big patrons, people who hook them up. And most influential of these folks are merchants. And one, they've got money to help these folks out, but probably just as importantly, if you think about whose power they want to decrease so that they can become more powerful, it's going to be the Rajas. And so if Buddha is teaching things that go against Rajas and their wealth and their vice and how they look out for themselves, of course the merchants are going to jump on board and try and support the Buddha. In struggles between oligarchies and kings, Buddha sides with oligarchies. That kind of reflects his upbringing. And a lot of this opposes ire from the Brahmins. No surprise there. In terms of the caste system, Buddha did not try to erase it, but the Sangha do provide a means of escape from it. And at the same time, that helps erode the Brahmin's power. Neither Buddha, neither he nor Mahavira, rather, erase the spiritual authority of the Brahmins. They don't get rid of the caste system, but they do establish some independent groups that kind of carry out religious, social, and scholarly activities outside of the realm of the Brahmins and according to their own doctrines. And if we can distill this down to kind of one simple idea to end this slide with, Buddhists try to live a moderate life to avoid extreme forms of asceticism or Jainism. They try to avoid worldly pleasures. And I know this one's been a little bit long, so I'll end it now, and we're going to switch gears and we're going to think about empire building.